So we are back here on the Choose954 Podcast, episode 41, with local legend, muralist, painter, motivator, empowerer, Lori Pratico, here from her very beautiful studio in ArtServe. If you didn't know about Choose954, we started a social movement to cultivate culture and community here in Broward County in an effort to keep people to know with all the great things that are going on and make this a better place to live, not just a better place to vacation. The point of the podcast is to connect you with amazing people like her, doing incredible things in the community. So without much further ado, why don't you tell the folks that aren't familiar with Miss Lori Pratico a little bit about yourself at a high level?
Well, thank you, Evan, for having me.
Of course.
And I think today was the first time on your Instagram that I saw you called me a legend, and I was like, what?
Deservedly so.
That was the first.
Deservedly
yes,
so.
I've become a legend. Does that mean I'm old?
It's well deserved. I didn't say you were old. You put in the work.
I have put in the work, and it's been quite a journey, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's really just been the more that I believe in myself, and the more that I believe I can do, the more I do, which is, pretty amazing. And it also makes me see how anyone else can do the same thing. And that's the message that I try to get out there. So when we talk next Friday at Creative Zen, that's one of the things I want to talk about, is come out and, I hope that you leave that conversation thinking you could do anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so part of why we wanted to have Lori on now.
Jumped ahead.
No, that's fine. Is Lori will be our next speaker at AAF Creative Zen, which is a monthly breakfast lecture series. It's a mini TED Talk that we hold for free for the creative community. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's creative. We bring in a local artist, thought leader, entrepreneur, yoga Zen master, whoever the case may be, to share their thought-provoking, inspiring story. That's where I got my aha moment when Alexa Carlin, the founder of the Women in Power Expo, shared her story. And, over 3.5 years later, I pay it back and pay it forward by hosting.
That's awesome.
So that'll be next Friday morning, July 12th. Doors open at 8:30. Talk starts at 9. You're out of there by 10. The next one, we always do it at a different cool venue around Greater Fort Lauderdale to introduce people to new places that they've never been before. It'll be at Arts and Crafts Social Club, which is in the Hive section of Mass District, where you can find some of her work, which we'll get into in a minute. And you could look it up under Creative Zen, but we'll get back to that. So you have amassed quite a well-established career. How did you get into art in the beginning?
I always knew from the time I was a little kid. I tell the story that when I was 5 years old and in kindergarten, they threw a smock over my head and let me finger paint and said it was okay to get it on myself. And that was it. That was the end. I was like, I want to be an artist. It just was, I was a messy kid. I'm a messy adult. And it's where you're allowed to be a mess, and it's actually celebrated.
Yeah.
And I love that. The act of being creative is what fuels me. The fact that my creativity has led me into being able to have a voice and being able to use my creativity as a tool to communicate to other people is like bonus. I didn't know that that's where I would end up. Mm-hmm. But when it happened, it was like, wow, this is really amazing. I couldn't ask for more.
And changing people's lives, giving people's stories voices, and empowering those that you knew, that you didn't know, that you never knew you would have known. So for those that aren't familiar, why don't you tell us a little bit about Girl Noticed?
Sure. So Girl Noticed really came out of me. I had been showing my artwork. I always did portraits. For years and years I was painting portraits, and my portraits really were about you looking at the person in the painting and seeing them differently. So I was painting women with pink hair and tattoos, and that really owned it, that stood in who they were. And I was living vicariously through them because I wanted the pink hair, and at the time I had no tattoos. I wanted tattoos, but I was too afraid I was afraid to stand out. you know, I wasn't self-confident enough to say if someone looked at me that they weren't looking at me and saying, oh, what's wrong with her kind of thing, you know, or she doesn't look right. So that fitting in and standing out, it was like a tug of war my whole life. And here I was painting these girls and living vicariously through them and just thinking they were like just amazing women. And I was really seeing how they were so much more than the pink hair and the tattoos. They were amazing women.
Yeah.
And when other people started seeing that through my artwork, I thought, wow, I really have a voice with my artwork. I can communicate with it. What do I want to say? What is the message I want to get out there? And it was really important to me that every single girl, every female, knew that just the way they were, exactly, without comparing themselves to someone else, without trying to be anything else, had value. And if they could find the value in themselves in that very present moment, exactly who they are, then they could be anything.
Amen. Despite their situations, the circumstances, their story. And I know if you, well, not a spoiler alert, but if you'd like to hear a little bit more about Lori's story, she shared it during Fort Lauderdale Art and Design Week on a collaboration talk that we did with Business for the Arts of Broward, for Arts Means Business, a series where she shared her story. And in the replay, you included, or we included the clip of the video of all of, not all of them, a lot of the women whose lives you've touched through the project.
Yes.
And if that doesn't make you cry, I don't know what will. So I'll link that in the comments, or if you just type in Art Fort Lauderdale on YouTube and Lori Pratico, the talk will come up. But it was really powerful to see how many lives you changed, not just here, locally, but, I mean, where has art taken you?
Yeah, so Girl Noticed, I created a mural project called Girl Noticed, and the idea behind the project from the get-go was I wanted to get to all 50 states, recognize at least 50 women, and with 50 murals. And how that was going to happen is girls and women were going to be nominated from each state by their community to be noticed. So the nominations come in, and then I choose 1 to 4 women. I draw them huge on the wall in charcoal, and I decided to do them in charcoal because I thought they should fade off the wall. I wanted that temporary message to be there. I wanted people to, well, the message is permanent,
right?
But I wanted that temporary nature to the project, that there was an urgency to witness it, to see it.
Correct.
In sending that same message that there's an urgency to notice in a girl or a female what she should value in herself. You know, because if we don't see those things, sometimes we can't see those things. We're in a situation where we're growing up in a situation maybe that, you know, we don't have time to even look at ourselves with value. It's impossible to see ourselves that way because of our surroundings, because of, you know, what we're dealing with. And it might take the teacher or the neighbor or the aunt or someone else in the community to be the one to take that time to notice. And that's what I wanted to do for these young women. And they started noticing each other through the nominations. And that in itself was empowering. Then to be gigantic on a wall and celebrated by your community, that was what really became powerful. And now I offer workshops, and so I've made it to 14 of the states. Yes. And I've been to places. Last year I was in Alaska doing it in Anchorage, which was amazing. You know, I would have never in a million years. You know, I'm a Philly girl that we went to the Jersey Shore every summer. That was it.
They need art in Alaska too.
Right? But, you know, travel wasn't really part of my story growing up. And, you know, sometimes when you grow up a certain way, you become fearful of doing things. So traveling was I was a little bit afraid of the unknown, you know, and what I didn't know. And I wanted to overcome that. One of the reasons why I said I wanted to get it to all 50 states was so that I could see the United States and that I could, you know, experience that. Little did I know what that would open up for me, you know, that I would go into these communities a lot of underserved communities even, and how they would embrace me and embrace the project and see it as such a beautiful, moving thing. Like, it was more powerful than I could have ever dreamed it would be.
And as a empowered man, was empowered by a woman that started a Women in Power Expo, it's truly, if you look at the murals, you watch the video, you speak with Lori, you speak with anybody touched by the project, it's very powerful. I've tried and want to and will continue to try to connect you with more walls and more states, and if you know somebody in a state that she hasn't been to yet, by all means, reach out, connect, engage. That might be the missing link to connect and change somebody's life or their community.
Yes, all 14 states that I've been to all happened in a different way. You know, the last state I went to was Utah, and right outside of Salt Lake City, and I connected with a girl on Instagram that was following me, and I wrote her and I said, hey, I like what you're doing. She does a yearly event called the Mom Show in Utah.
Okay.
And her whole thing was to do an event that was all inclusive. You know, she felt like everything was only set up for a certain kind of mom, and this was for every mom.
Okay.
And I said, I love what you're about. I said, can we work together and bring Girl Noticed? And I was in the next Mom Show this past Mother's Day in Utah.
Amazing.
At the convention center in Salt Lake City. So it's, you know, I mean,
sure.
You know, the way it happens, when it's supposed to happen, it all just comes together very organically and it happens.
Sure.
You know, and these connections that are, you know, your aunt or your friend that happens to live there, or somebody that's involved in an organization in another place, that maybe that organization needs attention.
Sure.
You know, and bringing in a national project can do that. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And so it's, and your work is not limited just to Girl Noticed, and it's not limited to commission work or canvas work as well. But before we get into some of the works that people might have seen around town, I was moved by the project you just did with Holy Cross. If you want to touch on that real briefly.
Yeah, so I'm a resident artist here at Art Serve. That's where my studio is, and I have been for a couple years now. Art Serve's been great to me. I started here, so I'd say maybe 15 years ago, I brought in my very first piece of framed artwork here.
Wow.
And never showed a piece in a gallery or anywhere. And in 15 years, this is where I'm at.
Beautiful.
You know, so it kind of was a full circle thing to be the resident artist here and to have my studio here. And I partnered with Art Serve and I'm doing a show at the Holy Cross Women's Center that they just opened up. And it's special because it's a women's center that was built by women. It was created by women, developed by women. And they saw the importance of, well, we have all women coming here, like what are their needs? What kind of environment do we want to create for them? And they're hanging female artists throughout the space the last few months, just to, you know, they have a gallery there and they're creating that kind of a space for these women going there, just that they feel comfortable and at home, and then, you know, and empower them to take care of their bodies and
provide levels of comfort and
absolutely
relief.
It does so many things, you know, and we don't think about that. Sometimes we just look at art and think it's just something to look at, and you either like it or you don't like it. It's so much more than that.
And one of the reasons why you have earned legendary status and why you are a well-respected artist and figure in the community is you have so many different levels. You have the Girl Notice project. You're doing partnerships like this, projects with Holy Cross. You have your traditional canvas, practice as well, and then you have public art, which, if you haven't seen, we might wake you up to a little bit. I'm going to run through some of my favorites and then you fill in some of the blanks. You might have noticed Lori's work at Green Bar Kitchen, which is one of our favorite vegan restaurants, a previous site for Creative Zen with Elena. You might have noticed her work at Rhythm and Vine. If you're fortunate enough to get an appointment at Hair Circus, which is a really, really cool space that's just opened. You'll notice her working there. Where are some other places, just in the even Fort Lauderdale area, Broward County area, where they've seen your work, public murals?
Well, just a note. So Hair Circus was my most recent project, and my thing is I'm hired to go in and really create the space, create the feel of the space. So they know already the feel most of the time they know the feel they want, and then I help them create that with the artwork on the walls and finishes and all kinds of things. And so this Friday I'm getting my hair a whole new look done at Hair Circus. So next Friday, if you come out to Creative Zen, you're going to see a whole completely different look.
You're going to do the pink that you want?
You never know. I got the tattoos, so you know, stay tuned.
Sure.
But yeah, we'll see. This should be fun. Anyway, I've been really fortunate to do quite a bit around town, and the Wilder is one of my favorite projects. All the wood finishes were done. You know, we made it look like the wood came out of 1940s Cuba kind of thing. Yeah. And right next door to that is Boulevard Cafe, and the counters, the floors, the walls, the bathroom walls, everything has my touch on it, has my artwork or my finish involved, and it's I don't take any of that for granted. You know, it's a great feeling to be able to wake up every day and do what I love, and to be able to have clients that respect my work and respect me and really get excited to work with me. I'm as excited to work with them as they are with me, which is great.
Most importantly, they pay for it.
And they pay for it. Yeah, they pay.
So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I think oftentimes, unfortunately, as Fort Lauderdale is becoming more culturally appreciative, culturally diverse, appreciative of the arts, I think we do unfortunately sometimes take public art and murals for granted. We all know the impact street art, public art has had on Wynwood and Miami and Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and many, many other places around the world in terms of taking walls, giving them color, giving them life, taking blighted buildings, making them active, so on and so forth. And I think in Fort Lauderdale, because we never really had an established mural scene, you might look and you might notice it, but since it's not like Wynwood where every wall is from a world-class muralist, maybe you don't appreciate it the same. But hopefully through this conversation and this dialogue, and now that you maybe will recognize a little bit more of Lori's work, maybe you will appreciate it a little bit more, and maybe when it's time for you to paint your wall or get a mural done, maybe you'll contact Lori or a local artist. And one of the underlying premises and goals of all these conversations is we're trying to obviously get more support for the arts locally, support local artists, and I think if nothing else, you've empowered business owners to do that. You're empowering other men and women to pursue their craft and their passion through you pursuing your craft and passion and creative outlet, which is a beautiful thing. And especially one of the things, as you were talking about the hair and the tattoos, I think right now is probably like the all-time peak for like artists. Artists are now literally becoming superstars and well-respected figures, rightfully so. And it's a really beautiful thing. And maybe there's some young girl listening to this or coming to the talk at Creative Zen that, wants to pursue their passion and their creative outlet, but maybe they're scared and maybe they needed that boost, that validation. And who knows, maybe your words could do so. More so than that, I would, for somebody that maybe isn't an artist, what would you want people to know or feel or think when they see your work? What are some of the takeaways?
Well, my hope is that you feel something. That's really it. I mean, there's people that are going to just look at the work and just enjoy it for the work. They're going to see the art in it and just enjoy it. And that's okay. They don't have to get this grand message from it, But with my Girl Notice project, the hope is to empower people through the work, to empower entire communities, which the work has. In Lincoln, Nebraska, I did 2 refugee women on the wall, and it was a community that really embraced the refugees there. But that didn't mean that they didn't have struggles and that they didn't have challenges. And it brought the community together, and they all celebrated together. And the artwork was the focal point and the reason to do that in the moment, which, you know, I can't ask for anything more than that.
That's beautiful.
But, you know, if you're going to the Wilder, you know, sit and have a drink and enjoy the surroundings and say, hey, I met the girl that did all this, you know. I mean, that's, or I know the girl that did this, and, you know, that's what's cool about it.
Yeah.
You know?
And public art at its most purest form is one of the highest forms of art. It's art that can be seen and accessed by anybody, for the community, for the people, unless it's in someone's private space, that's a different thing. But it's a really beautiful thing. You've really added, if you've thought about this or not, I don't know if anybody really mentions this or even thinks in this context, that you've added to the cultural landscape and the fabric of Broward County, and you've given color and life and substance and credibility and so much more with obviously all of your projects and initiative to Broward County in a place where, not my term, we've previously been called a cultural wasteland. And we're obviously that's so not the case.
No.
There's so many talented artists, and I know that I'm just going to mention briefly, so many talented artists that you've worked with that are mutual friends of ours, between Nikki
Absolutely.
and even at the Coral Springs Museum.
Oh, absolutely.
And you've done some phenomenal art healing programs and supportive programs at the museum in Coral Springs. And so I encourage you, if you don't already, to follow this Lori Pratico. Where can they find you? Social media, website?
Yeah, so Girl Noticed has a website, girlnoticed.org, and you can follow Girl Noticed on Instagram, on Twitter. I don't tweet a lot, but
it's okay.
I'm working on that.
We can link up your Instagram
Facebook,
and Twitter.
Instagram, all of that. Yeah, they are linked.
Okay,
but
good.
I just, you know, I don't know. I just don't. The tweeting thing just doesn't do it for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
but
then also Lori Pratico on Instagram. So if you want to see my commercial work and see where you can go around town and see some of my work, you can find that on Lori Pratico Instagram.
We need a bigger map.
Yeah. You know what? It is a great time for artists. You know, you pointed that out, and it is a great time for artists. But as you know, when I was starting, you couldn't. It was harder. You know, you didn't have social media. It was much harder to get your work out there. But it doesn't mean it's easier now.
Sure.
Because now everyone can get their work out there. You know, so your competition is much more in comparison to when if I did the work and got myself out there, then I was out there and I wasn't competing with a lot of other people. There weren't other muralists in front of people's face every single day, you know? So it's...
Gift and a curse?
Yeah. You know, I don't want to say it's a curse. I think it's just you find your lane and you do the work and you do it well, and you know, you can create a lane for yourself. Yeah,
as you have, and tremendous kudos and props to you. And I panned the camera a little bit for those that watched the replay. Also, if you come to Art Serve and Lori's here, or you want to schedule a studio tour,
absolutely,
I encourage you to do so. We're very thankful for Art Serve. If you didn't know, both of us, if you didn't know about Art Serve is a county funded property here off of Sunrise Boulevard, right across from Publix on 15th Street. Where they serve the artistic community. They do over 1,000 events a year here, from music, film, comedy, dance, jazz. One event that's coming up August 22nd that we're very fortunate and humbled to be a part of is as there's a new dawn and a new day for Art Serve with a new executive director with Craig, and a new curator with Sophie, and a lot of new life, and even a new executive director of the culture division with Philip. They are going in a different direction. They they retired the Red Eye event, which was the traditional annual multifaceted, multi-sensory art event, and they're not replacing it with Home. They're doing new programming, but on August 22nd, there's going to be a new event called Home, which is going to highlight and showcase different multi-visual or multifaceted art entities, and from film and dance and performance art and visual arts as well. And they're going to honor leaders in the cultural community, from Mayor Dean Trantellis to WLRN to Jody Tanner, the chair of the Broward County Cultural Council, And we're fortunate and humbled to be in the conversation. Me, myself, and my partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, are going to be included as well. So it's a $75 donation, which will go to ArtServe and help their programming and help them continue to support very talented, worthy artists like Lori and all of the other residents here and all the other artists that they serve at ArtServe. There is tons of other events. We encourage you to look up ArtServe on the website, on social media, other exhibits and programs and workshops. The Artisan Entrepreneur Workshop, which just wrapped up in June on every Saturday. Plenty of other things. A Changemaker Circle going on. It's really, really encouraging time. Creative Zen, we mentioned, is the second Friday morning of every month for free at a different place in Greater Fort Lauderdale. Doors open at 8:30. Talk starts at 9. You're out of there by 10. If you need things to tell your boss, I have a list for those that have to deal with that. We are still glad to support our dear friend Eden Velasco with Raw Storytelling, which is our version of The Moth, True Stories Untold. It's the second Thursday night of the month, which is the Thursday before Creative Zen. So it's the second Thursday night of the month. Creative Zen is the second Friday morning of the month. You can find out more at rawstorytelling.org. And we're so glad to support So Far Sounds, which we recently had one here at ArtServe. Songs from a Room experience, very intimate listening experience, rewarding true music fans with very intimate, independent musicians that are pouring their hearts and souls out in front of us in a very relaxed and intimate setting, not a bunch of people with their phones. And you can find out more at sofarsounds.com. And we are still glad to host the Choose954 Local Artist Discovery Series. We do a live art pop-up every Wednesday at YOLO. We bring a different artist to paint. We give them the canvas, easel, table. We don't charge. We don't take a cut of their work. We market it. We make a flyer. We give them a food tab. It's in an effort to bring local artists to the downtown YOLO crowd, to introduce them to our local artists, literally bring them there. We've been doing that every week for the last 123 consecutive weeks. So if you know a local artist that you'd like to suggest to participate, and there's no minimum or maximum skill set or requirement, I'm glad to support artists of any caliber. And last but not least, I didn't mention at the beginning, but this podcast is sponsored by the Thousand Mermaids Artificial Reef Project, which is an eco-art, public art conservation project. We create artistically crafted artificial reef modules where we body cast and sculpt local people in the form of mermaids. We do mermen as well. And we attach them to 3,500-pound artificial reef structures, which are going to help save the reefs, save the oceans, save the planet, put Fort Lauderdale on the map as a destination for research and ecotourism and citizen science opportunities. You can find out more at 1000mermaids.com. We hope to see you at Creative Zen. We hope you can see Lori's work throughout Fort Lauderdale, which you can. Mm-hmm. And any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm Evan Snow at EvanSnow13. I'm an open book. And save the reefs, y'all. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.